The more you explain yourself, the more power you quietly give away. Every time you rush to defend your choices, correct someone's opinion, or prove that your intentions were good, you place your peace in their hands. And here is the dangerous part. Even after you explain everything, they may still choose not to understand you. So the real question is not, how can I make them see my side? The real question is, why do you feel the need to make them see it at all? There is a point where explanation stops being communication and starts surrendering. Learn where that line is, and you begin to understand a kind of strength most people never develop, the trap of needing to be understood. Listen carefully. One of the fastest ways to lose control of yourself is to believe that everyone must understand you. The moment you need another person to approve your decision before you can feel confident about it, you have placed part of your strength in their hands. Now their reaction controls your peace. Their agreement makes you comfortable. Their disagreement makes you restless. And before you realize what is happening, you are no longer simply living your life. You are constantly explaining it. You make a decision, and someone questions it. Immediately you feel the urge to defend yourself. You explain why you did it. You give them the background. You tell them what you were thinking. You try to make your intentions perfectly clear. But they still disagree. So what happens? You explain again, only this time with more detail. You search for better words, because you believe that if you can just explain yourself correctly, they will finally see what you see. But understand this. Clarity does not guarantee agreement. You can explain yourself perfectly and still be misunderstood. You can have good intentions and still be judged unfairly. You can make the right decision for your life and still disappoint someone. This is something you must become strong enough to accept. Do not confuse being understood with being right. When you know why you are walking in a certain direction, you do not need every person standing beside the road to approve your destination. Listen to sincere advice. Examine yourself when criticism contains truth. Correct yourself when you are wrong. That is strength. But endlessly defending yourself because you cannot tolerate someone having the wrong opinion of you is different. That is dependence disguised as communication. A strong mind can listen without becoming a prisoner of what it hears. Think of a fighter. If he reacts to every movement his opponent makes, he becomes predictable. A small feint can control him because he has trained himself to react instead of observe. Your mind works the same way. If every criticism makes you defend yourself, every accusation makes you angry, and every misunderstanding forces you to explain, then other people have discovered how to move you. They speak, you react. They question, you defend. They misunderstand. You chase them with explanations. Where is your freedom in that? You must develop enough inner certainty to allow another person to think differently, without feeling an immediate need to change their mind. This does not mean becoming arrogant. It does not mean refusing to communicate. There are moments when explanation is necessary. In relationships, responsibilities, work, and situations where your actions affect others. Wisdom is not silence at all times. Wisdom is knowing why you are speaking. Ask yourself, am I explaining because this conversation genuinely needs clarity, or because I cannot bear being misunderstood? That question changes everything. When your actions are guided by principle, you become less desperate to manage every opinion surrounding you. You begin to understand that your responsibility is not to control what everyone thinks. Your responsibility is to know yourself clearly enough that another person's misunderstanding does not immediately shake your foundation. Some people will understand you, some will not. Some may understand perfectly and still disagree. Let them. You have limited energy. Do not spend your life dragging every person toward your point of view. Use that energy to sharpen your character, improve your discipline, correct your weaknesses, and make your actions stronger than your explanations. Because once you stop demanding that everyone understand you, something changes inside you. You become quieter, not because you are afraid to speak, but because you no longer need words to hold yourself together. And that is where a different kind of power begins. Every explanation reveals what can control you. Pay attention to what happens when someone questions you. Before you answer their words, notice what moves inside you. Do you become tense? Do you immediately feel the need to prove something? Do you start searching for the perfect explanation because you cannot stand the thought that they may judge you incorrectly? That reaction tells you something important. It shows you where another person may still have access to your emotions. Understand this clearly. Whatever can force you to react can begin to control you. A person does not always need physical power over you. Sometimes all they need is one sentence. They question your intelligence, and suddenly you must prove how capable you are. They doubt your courage, and you begin acting recklessly to show that you are not afraid. They criticize your decision, and now you are giving them every reason behind it, hoping they will finally approve. Look carefully at what has happened. You were walking in your own direction. Then someone spoke, and your attention immediately left your path and moved toward their opinion. That is the danger. An explanation can be useful when it creates understanding. But when you explain because someone has touched your insecurity, your words begin revealing more than your reasons. They reveal the exact place where you can be pushed. Imagine a fighter who becomes angry every time his opponent insults him. Once the opponent discovers this weakness, the fight becomes easier. He does not need to attack directly. He only needs to provoke emotion. Anger will do the rest. The fighter will rush forward, abandon his balance, and create his own opening. The same principle exists outside combat. If someone knows that questioning your character makes you defensive, they can keep questioning it. If they know that withholding approval makes you chase them, they can keep withholding it. If they discover that silence makes you uncomfortable, they can simply wait while you continue talking, explaining more and more until you have given away information you never needed to give. This is why self-control begins before the words leave your mouth. When someone challenges you, do not immediately move. Observe first. Ask yourself, does this deserve an answer? Then ask a deeper question. What is making me want to answer? There is a difference between responding from clarity and responding from wounded pride. When clarity speaks, the answer is usually simple. You say what needs to be said, and then you stop. You do not keep adding words because the other person looks unconvinced. You do not turn the conversation into a courtroom where you must prove your innocence. You know what you meant, you communicated calmly, and you allow the other person to decide what they will do with it. But wounded pride cannot stop so easily. It wants victory. It wants the other person to say, "You are right. I misunderstood you." And until those words arrive, the mind remains restless. That is how control is transferred. You must become difficult to manipulate, not by becoming cold, but by understanding yourself deeply enough that another person's pressure does not automatically produce your reaction. Learn your triggers. Notice which accusations make you speak too much. Notice which opinions make you abandon your calm. Notice whose approval feels unusually important to you. These are not small observations. They are maps showing you where your discipline must become stronger. Do not hide these weaknesses from yourself. Study them. A martial artist does not become stronger by pretending there are no openings in his defense. He becomes stronger by finding them before his opponent does. Your emotional discipline must work the same way. When you discover that criticism can control you, train yourself to hear criticism without immediately defending yourself. When you discover that misunderstanding makes you anxious, practice allowing a misunderstanding to exist for a moment without rushing to correct it. When someone tries to provoke you, create space between their words and your response. That space is where your freedom lives. You do not have to become silent forever. You simply need to stop being predictable. Your words should come because you choose to speak, not because someone has pressed the correct emotional button. The person who controls your reactions does not need to control your entire life. They only need to know what makes you lose your center. So guard your center. Speak deliberately. Explain when explanation serves a purpose. Clarify when clarity matters. But never let another person's doubt force you into proving your worth. Because the moment you stop reacting on command, people lose the ability to move you so easily. And when nobody can pull your mind away from its balance with a few words, you have begun to understand what real control feels like. Silence is not weakness when it is chosen. Do not mistake silence for weakness. A weak person may remain silent because he is afraid to speak. A strong person may remain silent because he has already decided that speaking will accomplish nothing. From the outside, these two people may look the same. Inside, they are completely different. One is trapped by fear, the other is guided by choice. You must understand this distinction, because many people speak when they should be still, simply because they are afraid of looking weak. Someone challenges them, so they answer immediately. Someone insults them, so they strike back with words. Someone says something unfair, and suddenly they feel responsible for correcting the entire situation. They believe that if they do not respond, the other person has won. But ask yourself, won what? If a person can make you abandon your calm simply by provoking you, who actually has control? Silence becomes powerful when it is deliberate. It says, without saying anything, I heard you, I understood you, and I have decided that this does not deserve my energy. That requires discipline. Anyone can react when emotion is high. It takes very little training to become angry when someone insults you. It takes almost no control to speak the first thought that enters your mind. Real discipline appears in the small distance between what happens to you and what you choose to do next. That distance may last only a few seconds, but those seconds can change everything. When someone says something designed to provoke you, do not rush to fill the air. Let the words arrive. Observe what they awaken inside you. Anger may rise. Pride may tell you to respond. Your mind may begin creating 10 different arguments. Let those reactions appear without immediately obeying them. You are not your first impulse. You are the one who decides whether that impulse deserves action. Think about movement in martial arts. If you are tense, you waste energy. If you move simply because you see movement in front of you, you become easy to deceive. But when you are relaxed and alert, you can observe before committing yourself. You do not throw a technique merely because an opening seems to appear. You understand timing. Conversation has timing too. Sometimes one clear sentence is enough. Sometimes a question is better than an argument. Sometimes you should explain your position calmly. And sometimes the most intelligent response is no response at all. The skill is not silence. The skill is selection. You decide which words deserve to leave your mouth. This is important because words cannot always be taken back. A moment of anger can produce a sentence that damages a relationship built over years. A defensive reaction can reveal information that should have remained private. An unnecessary argument can turn a small disagreement into a conflict that follows you for days. Silence gives you time to see beyond the present emotion. When you do not immediately react, you can ask, what is actually happening here? Is this person trying to understand me? Or are they trying to provoke me? Is this conversation moving toward a solution? Or are we simply exchanging frustration? Will another 10 minutes of talking improve anything? These questions bring you back to awareness, and awareness gives you options. Without awareness, you react automatically. With awareness, you can choose, but be careful. Do not turn silence into another form of ego. Silence should not become a weapon you use to punish people, manipulate them, or make them anxious. Refusing to communicate with someone who deserves an honest conversation is not strength. Avoiding difficult discussions because you are uncomfortable is not discipline. Sometimes courage requires you to speak directly. If you hurt someone, explain yourself. If you make a mistake, admit it. If someone you respect genuinely needs clarity, communicate. If an important boundary has been crossed, state it clearly. Strength does not mean becoming emotionally unavailable. It means learning the difference between meaningful communication and useless reaction. This difference will save you enormous energy. You will discover that many situations do not require the long response your emotions originally demanded. Someone makes a sarcastic comment, you notice it, but you continue with your day. Someone tries to pull you into gossip, you do not participate. Someone sends an angry message. Instead of responding while your emotions are hot, you wait until your mind becomes clear. Nothing dramatic happens, and that is exactly the point. You begin to realize how many conflicts survive only because people keep feeding them. An argument needs energy. Provocation needs participation. Drama needs attention. When you stop supplying these things, many problems become smaller by themselves. You do not need to attend every argument to which you are invited. You do not need the final word. You do not need to prove that you could have destroyed someone with your response. Sometimes walking away with your balance intact is worth more than delivering the perfect comeback. This is where silence becomes a form of self-respect. You are telling yourself, my attention has value, my energy has value, my peace has value. I will not spend them carelessly. When you begin living this way, your presence changes. You become less reactive. People cannot easily predict which emotional button will make you explode because you no longer allow every button to control your behavior. You listen more carefully. You notice the intentions behind the words. You stop confusing noise with importance. And strangely, when you stop speaking unnecessarily, the words you do speak become heavier. Why? Because people recognize that you are not talking simply to hear yourself. You are not filling silence because silence makes you uncomfortable. When you finally say something, there is thought behind it. A calm sentence can carry more force than 10 minutes of shouting. A simple "I disagree" can be stronger than a long defense. A clear "no" can be more powerful than a paragraph of excuses. A quiet departure can communicate what another argument never could. Learn to become comfortable with that simplicity. You do not need to decorate every decision with explanations. You do not need to turn every boundary into a speech. You do not need to convince someone before you are allowed to leave a conversation that is going nowhere. Say what is necessary, then stop. At first, this may feel uncomfortable because your mind has been trained to fill empty space. When another person becomes silent, you may feel pressure to continue explaining. Resist that pressure. Let silence exist. Watch what happens. Sometimes the other person will reveal more because you stop talking. Sometimes your own emotions will settle. Sometimes you will realize that the answer you were preparing was unnecessary. And sometimes the silence itself will show you that there was never a real conversation taking place, only an attempt to pull you into a reaction. This is why stillness is not passive. Stillness can be extremely alert. A fighter standing quietly is not necessarily doing nothing. He may be watching distance, rhythm, balance, breathing, and intention. His body appears calm because his awareness is active. Develop that same quality in your mind. When pressure comes, become more aware, not more noisy. When someone challenges you, become more precise, not more emotional. When anger rises, become more deliberate, not more impulsive. Then, if you choose to speak, your words will belong to you. They will not belong to your anger, your insecurity, or another person's provocation. And if you choose silence, do not feel ashamed of it. You do not owe every insult a response. You do not owe every misunderstanding a debate. You do not owe every critic access to your attention. Let immature people call your silence weak if they wish. You know the difference between being unable to speak and having nothing worth saying. The person who cannot speak is powerless. The person who can speak, can fight, can answer, but consciously chooses restraint has discovered another level of strength. Master that restraint, because when your silence becomes a choice instead of a fear, you stop being controlled by the pressure to react. And once you no longer need to react to everything, you are ready for the next lesson. Learning that not every battle placed in front of you deserves to become your battle. Stop entering every battle you are invited into. You must learn this early. Not every battle placed in front of you belongs to you. Some people will challenge you because they disagree. Some will provoke you because they are angry. Others will test you simply because they want to see whether they can disturb your balance. If you accept every invitation to conflict, your life will become a series of battles chosen by other people. That is not strength. That is surrendering your direction. A disciplined person does not ask, "Can I win this argument?" He asks, "Is this argument worth entering?" There is a difference. You may have the perfect answer. You may be able to prove another person wrong. You may even know exactly what to say that would silence them. But victory is not always found in defeating the person standing in front of you. Sometimes victory is recognizing that the fight itself has no value. Imagine you are walking toward an important destination and someone on the side of the road insults you. You stop. You turn around. You begin arguing. 10 minutes pass. Then 20. Perhaps you win the argument. Perhaps the other person finally has nothing left to say. But look carefully at what happened. They were standing still. You were the one with somewhere to go. Yet you abandoned your path to fight their battle. This happens constantly in life. You have work to complete, a body to train, a skill to develop, a family to care for, or a future to build. Then one careless comment enters your mind and steals an entire afternoon. Someone criticizes you online, and suddenly your attention belongs to a stranger. Someone tries to embarrass you in a group, and now you spend hours thinking about the perfect response. A person misunderstands one decision, and instead of continuing forward, you stop to defend your entire character. You must ask yourself, what is this costing me? Every conflict has a price. It costs time. It costs concentration. It can cost emotional energy long after the conversation is finished. You may leave the room physically, but the argument continues inside your head. You replay their words. You imagine what you should have said. You prepare for the next encounter. Now the battle is no longer happening outside you. You have carried it home. This is why choosing your battles is not cowardice. It is energy management. It is understanding that your attention is limited and refusing to spend it without purpose. A martial artist does not attack every movement. He does not throw 10 techniques when one is enough. He conserves energy, watches carefully, and acts when action has meaning. Wasteful movement creates fatigue. Wasteful conflict does the same thing to the mind. Learn to recognize the battles that are designed only to consume you. Some arguments have no destination. The other person is not searching for the truth. They are searching for a reaction. They do not want understanding. They want emotional participation. You give one answer, and they create another accusation. You clarify one point, and they change the subject. You remain calm, so they become more insulting because calmness was never what they wanted from you. When you see this pattern, stop trying to turn chaos into a reasonable conversation. Walk away. You are not required to remain inside a conversation simply because another person wants to continue it. This does not mean avoiding every disagreement. There are battles you should enter. If someone violates an important boundary, speak. If your responsibility requires you to defend another person, act. If a serious misunderstanding threatens something valuable, clarify it. If silence would allow real harm to continue, then silence is no longer discipline. Wisdom is knowing the difference between necessary confrontation and useless conflict. Ask yourself 3 questions. First, does this matter? Not does this annoy me? Not did this hurt my pride? Does it actually matter? A person can offend your ego without threatening anything important. Someone can dislike you without damaging your life. A stranger can believe something false about you without changing who you are. Do not turn every irritation into an emergency. Second, can this conversation produce something useful? If both people are willing to listen, disagreement can be valuable. You may discover something you missed. You may correct a mistake. You may strengthen a relationship through honest conversation. But if the other person has already decided that they will not listen, more words often create more noise. Know when the door to understanding is open. Know when it is closed. Third, what will this battle require from me? Some conflicts may be worth the cost. Others are too expensive. If defending yourself for 5 minutes protects an important boundary, speak. But if proving a stranger wrong will occupy your mind for 2 days, the price is too high. Your energy should serve your mission. This becomes even more important when people discover that you are difficult to provoke. At first, some may push harder. They are accustomed to getting a reaction. When you do not give it to them, they may increase the pressure. Do not confuse increased pressure with a reason to surrender your discipline. Stay centered. When someone says, "Why aren't you answering me?" you do not have to produce an argument. When someone tells you, "You're just walking away because you know I'm right," you do not need to return and prove them wrong. Sometimes people will use your refusal to fight as another weapon against you. Let them. If your peace depends on correcting their interpretation of your peace, you have entered the same trap again. Understand something deeper. You do not need everyone to recognize that you won. A mature victory can be invisible. There will be times when walking away makes you look weak to people who measure strength by noise. They believe strength means having the final word, raising the voice, or forcing another person to surrender. But a strong person does not need every victory to be witnessed. If I avoid a meaningless fight and keep my energy for something important, I have not lost. If I refuse to insult someone simply because they insulted me, I have not become weak. If I leave an argument before anger makes me become someone I do not respect, I have protected something more valuable than my pride. You must decide what kind of person you want to become. If your identity depends on winning every confrontation, you will eventually become a prisoner of confrontation. Anyone who challenges you will be able to choose how you spend your time. But when you know yourself, challenges become information rather than commands. Someone criticizes you. You examine the criticism. If it contains truth, you learn. If it contains nothing useful, you continue walking. That is freedom. Do not reject criticism simply because it is uncomfortable. Sometimes the battle you want to avoid is actually the one you need to face inside yourself. If someone points out a real weakness, do not hide behind silence. Be willing to examine yourself honestly. Choosing your battles does not mean protecting your ego from truth. It means protecting your purpose from distraction. This distinction is important. The strongest person in the room is not always the one who defeats everyone who challenges him. Often it is the person who remains focused while everyone else is trying to pull him away from what matters. Your goals need that focus. Your discipline needs it. Your future needs it. There are people who lose years of their lives fighting enemies who were never blocking their path. They become obsessed with proving themselves to critics. They build their lives as responses to people they dislike. Think about the tragedy of that. Even if they succeed, the critic still determines the direction. Do not build your life as an argument. Build it as an expression of what you believe. If you want to become stronger, train. If you want respect, develop character. If you want mastery, practice. If you want peace, protect your mind. Do not waste valuable years trying to make every person who doubted you regret it. Their regret is not your destination. Your growth is. This is why sometimes the most powerful response to an invitation to battle is simply to continue moving. No dramatic speech, no revenge, no need to show that you are above them, just direction. And there is something powerful about a person who cannot easily be distracted from his direction. You speak when something deserves your voice. You confront when confrontation protects what matters. You leave when remaining would only feed chaos. That balance is strength. Do not become someone who avoids conflict because you fear discomfort. But do not become someone who seeks conflict because your ego needs victory. Stand between these two extremes. Be flexible enough to move when movement is necessary, and still enough to remain when reaction would be foolish. Then your life begins to change. People may still criticize you, challenge you, misunderstand you, or attempt to pull you into unnecessary battles. The difference is that they no longer decide which battles you fight. You decide. And once you start choosing your battles instead of accepting every invitation, you discover something even more powerful. Your actions can begin speaking so clearly that many explanations are no longer necessary at all. Let your actions carry the weight. Stop trying to convince people with words when your life can give them the answer. If you constantly tell people that you are disciplined, eventually someone will ask where the discipline is. If you repeatedly explain that you are strong, your strength will be tested. If you keep telling others what you are going to accomplish, your words begin carrying a burden that only action can remove. So speak less about what you intend to become. Become it. There is a powerful difference between announcing your direction and walking in it. Many people spend more energy describing the person they want to be than developing that person. They talk about changing their habits, building their body, controlling their emotions, improving their work, or transforming their life. The words create a temporary feeling of progress, but nothing has actually moved. Do not confuse expression with execution. If you want something, work toward it. If you believe something, live according to it. If you claim that a principle matters to you, let your behavior prove it when following that principle becomes difficult. Your actions are where your character becomes visible. Think about a martial artist entering a training hall. He can tell everyone how fast he is. He can describe every technique he knows. He can explain how many years he has trained. But when training begins, words lose their importance. The body reveals the truth. Life works the same way. Your habits reveal what your promises cannot. You may say that your health matters, but your daily choices show how seriously you take it. You may say that you want success, but your willingness to work when nobody is watching reveals the depth of that desire. You may say that you value loyalty, patience, courage, or honesty, but those qualities become real only when life gives you a reason to abandon them, and you refuse. Character is demonstrated under pressure. This is why you should be careful about explaining who you are. The more energy you spend controlling your image, the less energy you may have for developing your substance. You do not need to tell everyone that you have changed. Let time reveal the change. You do not need to announce that you are becoming more disciplined. Wake up tomorrow and practice discipline. You do not have to convince the person who once underestimated you that you are capable. Build something that requires capability. This approach creates a different kind of confidence, because your confidence is no longer based on what people believe about you. It is supported by evidence you have created through your own behavior. You know you can remain disciplined because you have practiced discipline. You know you can endure discomfort because you have endured it. You know you can keep your word because you have kept it when breaking it would have been easier. This confidence is quiet. It does not need a witness. And because it does not need a witness, it becomes difficult for other people to take away. Now understand something important. Letting your actions speak does not mean you should never communicate. Communication is necessary. You must sometimes explain expectations, clarify responsibilities, express feelings, teach, apologize, or discuss important decisions. The lesson is not to eliminate words. The lesson is to make your words and actions agree. When someone hears one thing from your mouth and repeatedly sees another thing in your behavior, trust disappears. You can offer another explanation, but explanations cannot repair a pattern that continues unchanged. If you repeatedly arrive late and tell people that you respect their time, eventually your explanation means nothing. If you promise to control your temper but explode every time you are challenged, another promise will carry little weight. If you say you are committed to your goal, but abandon your effort whenever motivation disappears, your speeches about ambition do not matter. Your pattern becomes your message. That is why action is so powerful. It removes unnecessary debate, saying, "Believe me." You create evidence, saying, "I will show you." You begin working, arguing about what you deserve. You develop the ability to handle greater responsibility. There is freedom in this. When you stop trying to manage how everyone sees you, you can put your energy into becoming someone you respect. That is a much stronger goal. Ask yourself this: if nobody applauded me, would I still do the work? Would you still train if nobody saw your progress? Would you still keep your promises if nobody praised your integrity? Would you still improve your mind if there were no audience waiting to admire you? If the answer is yes, you are beginning to build something real. A person who depends on applause becomes inconsistent because applause is inconsistent. Some days people notice you, other days they do not. Some people admire your effort, others criticize it. If your discipline rises and falls with their reaction, your direction is still being controlled from the outside. But when the work itself matters to you, external noise becomes less important. You begin to understand that improvement is often quiet. A tree does not make an announcement every time its roots grow deeper. Much of your strongest development will happen where nobody can see it. It happens when you wake up and do what you promised yourself you would do. It happens when you refuse the easy choice because you know it will weaken you. It happens when you continue practicing after the excitement has disappeared. It happens when you correct a weakness without waiting for anyone to notice. These small actions accumulate. Then one day people may call you disciplined, focused, calm, capable, or strong. But by then, the label is no longer important. You already know what you built. Be careful, however, not to turn action into performance. There is a difference between doing the work and constantly displaying the work to prove something. If every achievement must immediately be shown to someone, you may still be searching for the same approval, only through a different method. Sometimes keep your progress private. Give your goals room to breathe. Work without announcing every step. You will discover that privacy can protect concentration. When fewer people are commenting on your direction, you hear your own judgment more clearly, and when success arrives, do not spend your time attacking those who doubted you. You do not need to return to every person who underestimated you and say, "Look at me now." That still makes your life about them. Move beyond that. The deepest victory is not proving another person wrong. The deepest victory is becoming so committed to your own development that proving them wrong no longer interests you. This is where strength becomes clean. There is no revenge inside it, no desperate display, no endless explanation, only progress. Let people judge an early version of you if they want. You do not need to interrupt your development to correct their opinion. Continue working. People often form conclusions from a single moment, but your life is longer than a single moment. Give yourself time to become. And remember that actions must be consistent to carry real weight. One disciplined morning does not create discipline. One calm response does not create emotional mastery. One productive week does not build a meaningful life. Repetition creates identity. Every day, your behavior places another stone into the person you are building. Choose those stones carefully. This is why simple action can defeat complicated explanations. When your life becomes consistent, you no longer need to argue with every false judgment. The people who truly matter will eventually recognize the pattern, and those who refuse to recognize it were probably never waiting for evidence in the first place. So stop exhausting yourself trying to demonstrate your value with speeches. Sharpen your skills, strengthen your habits, keep your promises, finish what you begin. Treat people according to your principles. Remain disciplined when nobody is watching. Then let time do what arguments cannot. Your words may influence someone for a moment, but your behavior creates a record. Make that record strong. Because when your actions consistently carry the weight, you become less concerned with explaining who you are, and you move closer to the final freedom, being completely comfortable when someone still chooses to misunderstand you. Become comfortable being misunderstood. In your growth, when you must accept something that your ego does not like, some people will misunderstand you no matter how carefully you explain yourself. You can choose your words perfectly. You can speak calmly. You can tell the truth. You can show good intentions. And still, another person may walk away with a completely different picture of you. Can you remain steady when that happens? That is the test. It is easy to feel confident when everyone agrees with you. It is easy to remain calm when people praise your choices. But your inner strength is revealed when someone sees you incorrectly, and you resist the urge to chase them down and repair their opinion. This is difficult because human beings naturally care about how they are seen. You want people to recognize your intentions. You want your family to understand your decisions. You want friends to know your heart. You want others to see that you are not trying to hurt anyone. There is nothing wrong with wanting healthy understanding. The problem begins when understanding becomes a requirement for your peace. Then another person's opinion becomes a chain around your mind. They think you are selfish, so you spend the evening proving how generous you are. They think you are weak, so you behave aggressively to show strength. They call you unsuccessful, so you begin measuring your life against their expectations. They say you have changed, and suddenly you feel guilty for becoming different from the person they were comfortable with. Do you see what has happened? You are no longer simply living according to your values. You are adjusting yourself according to other people's interpretations. That is a dangerous way to live. If you constantly change direction so everyone can understand you, eventually you will lose your own direction. You must learn to separate two things: being misunderstood and being wrong. They are not the same. Sometimes you are misunderstood because you communicated poorly. In that case, improve your communication. Sometimes you hurt someone without realizing it. Then listen, take responsibility, and correct what needs correcting. Sometimes criticism exposes a weakness you are unable to see yourself. Be grateful enough to examine it. But there will also be times when you have explained yourself clearly, acted responsibly, and done what you believe is right, and someone still refuses to see you fairly. That is where you must stop. Not because you hate them, not because you are arrogant, because you understand that you cannot enter another person's mind and rearrange their thoughts. You control your conduct. You do not control their interpretation. This distinction will save you years of unnecessary emotional struggle. Think about water. Pour clean water into different containers, and it takes different shapes. The water has not changed, but the container affects how it appears. People are like this. They see you through their experiences, expectations, fears, wounds, beliefs, and assumptions. One person may see your confidence as strength. Another may call it arrogance. One person may respect your quiet nature. Another may assume you are unfriendly. One person may admire your independence. Another may believe you are distant. If you try to become the perfect version of yourself for every observer, you will spend your entire life changing shape. You cannot live that way. Know your form without becoming rigid. Listen without becoming dependent. Be willing to change when truth requires change, but never change merely because someone is uncomfortable with the person you are becoming. This requires maturity, because sometimes growth disappoints people. When you begin setting boundaries, someone who benefited from your lack of boundaries may say you have become difficult. When you become more disciplined, people who enjoyed wasting time with you may say you have become boring. When you stop participating in gossip, someone may say you think you are better than everyone. When you begin protecting your time, someone may accuse you of becoming selfish. Do not immediately assume that every negative reaction means you are doing something wrong. Examine yourself honestly. Then continue. Your responsibility is to make sure your direction is correct, not to make sure everyone applauds the direction. This is where many people become trapped. They begin changing their life, but the moment someone close to them questions the change, they retreat. They return to old habits because the old version of themselves was easier for other people to understand. But growth often creates distance before it creates clarity. You are leaving an old pattern. People may still be speaking to the person you used to be. Give them time. More importantly, give yourself permission to continue. Do not keep returning to yesterday simply because yesterday made other people comfortable. There is another reason you must become comfortable with misunderstanding. You will never have enough time to correct every false opinion about you. Imagine trying. Every rumor requires an answer. Every criticism requires a defense. Every judgment requires clarification. Every stranger who forms the wrong impression becomes another person you must convince. When would you live? Your entire life would become public relations for your own identity. That is exhaustion. You need a stronger center than that. Let your values become that center. Before making an important decision, ask yourself, is this honest? Is this necessary? Is this consistent with the person I am trying to become? Am I avoiding responsibility, or am I genuinely choosing what is right for me? If you can answer these questions clearly, then move. Some people will understand later. Some never will. Continue anyway. This does not mean becoming careless about your reputation. Your name matters. Your conduct matters. Trust matters. If a false accusation threatens your family, work, safety, or serious responsibility, you may need to address it directly. Strength is not pretending consequences do not exist. But there is a great distance between protecting something important and trying to correct every opinion. Learn that distance. Otherwise, your ego will disguise itself as responsibility. It will tell you, you must answer this. No. Sometimes you simply want to answer because being misunderstood hurts. Feel that discomfort without obeying it. Let someone disagree with your decision. Let someone leave the conversation unconvinced. Let someone think they know your motives when they do not. Then notice something surprising. You are still standing. Your life continues. The discomfort passes. And every time you survive being misunderstood without abandoning yourself, your need for approval becomes a little weaker. This is training. Just as the body becomes stronger through resistance, your inner independence becomes stronger through moments when you could chase approval but choose not to. Silence may feel unnatural. You will want to send another message. You will want to add one more explanation. You will imagine the other person telling their version of the story, and your mind will say, correct them, wait. Ask yourself whether another explanation will actually produce understanding or merely continue the cycle. Sometimes your strongest move is allowing an unfinished conversation to remain unfinished. There is freedom in that. You stop carrying responsibility for conclusions you did not create. You stop rehearsing arguments for people who are not present. You stop trying to control conversations happening in rooms you are not inside, and suddenly, you have more energy. Where does that energy go? Into your training, into your work, into your relationships with people who actually communicate with you honestly, into building the life you were too distracted to build while trying to manage everyone's perception. That is a better use of your strength. Remember this. People often judge chapters while you are still writing the book. Do not interrupt your story every time someone misunderstands one page. Continue writing. Time has a way of revealing patterns that explanations cannot. If your character is strong, consistency will show it. If your intentions are sincere, your behavior will repeatedly reflect them. If you are moving in the right direction, your life will slowly carry evidence. You do not need immediate understanding. Learn patience. But there is an even deeper level. You must reach the point where being understood is no longer the prize. The prize is being aligned with yourself. You know what you stand for. You know what you are building. You know where you need improvement. You know what you will no longer tolerate. And because you know these things, another person's temporary opinion does not become your identity. That is inner stability. You are no longer fighting to control every mirror in which you are reflected. Some mirrors will distort you. Let them. Your job is not to repair every mirror. Your job is to know yourself clearly enough that distortion does not confuse you. So the next time someone misunderstands you, do not immediately run toward explanation. Pause. Examine yourself first. If you owe clarification, give it simply. If you owe an apology, give it sincerely. If you are wrong, correct yourself without pride. But if you have spoken clearly, acted responsibly, and there is nothing more that needs to be said, have the courage to stop. Let them think. Let them judge. Let them walk away with their opinion. You walk away with your center. Because the final freedom is not reaching a life where nobody misunderstands you. That life does not exist. The final freedom is reaching a point where misunderstanding no longer has the power to make you betray yourself. You do not need everyone to see you correctly. You need to see yourself clearly, live honestly, and keep moving. That is enough. Stop wasting your strength trying to make everyone understand you. A disciplined mind does not chase approval, defend every decision, or answer every judgment. Speak when your words have purpose. Stay silent when explanation would only feed the noise. Let people think what they choose to think while you remain focused on what you choose to become. Your life will reveal more than arguments ever can. Remember this, you do not become powerful by winning every conversation. You become powerful when no conversation can pull you away from yourself. Say less, stand firm, keep moving.